So Shannon Sharpe just whipped out his cell phone, Undisputed, and called Julio Jones up. And he asked Julio, do you want to play in Dallas? Because I guess this is probably a thing where Shannon Sharpe's going at Skip Bayless about the Dallas Cowboys and all that. And Julio goes, no, I don't want to play in Dallas. But when asked how he's feeling about Atlanta, he says, quote, I'm out of there. So, and at this point, when he said that, I'm not entirely sure Julio knew that he was on air. Because Shannon Sharpe only tells Julio Jones that they're on air, by the way, about 60 seconds into the actual conversation. So I don't know how much Julio actually knew about how many people were going to hear it, but whenever that clip happened, it's now plastered all over Twitter, and it's trending. Both Shannon Sharpe and Julio Jones are trending on Twitter. So a couple of things here. Julio Jones says he wants to go play for a winner. That's going to be very hard, considering the amount of money it would cost Atlanta to move his contract. And granted, the other team could maybe take a little bit of that, soften the blow. But it's going to be a decent-sized contract to move for Atlanta. Even after June 1st, it's not going to be a simple thing. And there are a lot of teams, most of the competitive teams out there, like Green Bay, have a bunch of cap issues. You're not going to be able to go out and get a Julio Jones. Maybe a team like the Chargers think have enough cap space for Julio's contract. I think the Colts have enough cap space. I think the Patriots have enough cap space. But if you look at those three teams, I mean, which one of those is really in a position to win right now? I know the Colts almost got past the Buffalo Bills last year in the playoffs. They changed quarterbacks in the offseason, lost a few pieces, including their left tackle. Well, they did Eric Fisher, but I don't know when Eric Fisher is going to be healthy enough to play. So Julio, maybe they're getting into the second round of the playoffs, but I don't think the Colts are a Super Bowl team. I think the AFC South is one of the weaker divisions in the NFL right now. The Chargers haven't made the playoffs recently. At least, I mean, obviously Justin Herbert hasn't made the playoffs for the team. They didn't make it last year. And it's still kind of an unproven team, even though they have a top 5 roster talent-wise in the NFL. They have not made a deep run yet to prove that they're a playoff caliber team. And we're still waiting to see if Justin Herbert can have 2 consecutive Pro Bowl caliber years. And the Patriots, there's no guarantee the Patriots are going to win more than 9 or 10 games this year. And maybe they get into the playoffs as a wild card seed, but they're playing against Miami and against Buffalo. Buffalo is certainly a better team than New England right now. And there's a chance that Miami is as well. So I don't know that any of those teams that have the cap space for Julio's contract would really be winners in Julio's definition of the word. Just looking at his contract right now, potential dead cap hits for just cutting Julio outright or trading him outright, something like $40 million this year for Atlanta. Now, granted, I don't know if it takes into account if you move him in June instead. And there is a potential out after the 2022 season, but you know it's still a pretty big contract. He's got a base salary of $15.3 million this year. And next year it's 11.5. The year after that, if the contract is not opted out of, it's still 11.5 million. That's a lot for a receiver who's already 32 years old. He's never had outside of 2013, has never had a super significant injury that I would say, oh, this could be career altering. But he's had a bunch of nagging injuries along the way. And we know that. I mean, largely in his legs, I believe, larger than legs and feet have been where most of the concerns have been. But he was still, I mean, a dominant receiver for, I think he had 6 years straight with over 1,300 receiving yards. And then this past season, only played 9 games, averaged about 85, 86 receiving yards per game, which is still really, really good. But 32 years old, coming off the worst year of his career since that 2013 injury that I mentioned previously. And never been a great touchdown machine. You have to start worrying. Because I know even all-time great wide receivers, usually 34, sometimes 33, is when they start trailing off. And that's usually when their last 1,000-yard season comes. And we're just talking about a 1,000-yard season. You could have 1,001 yards and that would qualify. Most receivers, their prime ends are around 33, 34 years old. Julio Jones is 32. So you have to consider that. And granted, he could just be built differently because he's a future Hall of Famer and he is one of the most athletically dominant receivers since Calvin Johnson. So you have to consider that maybe there's just the fact that he's built differently. But, you know, there are certainly some concerns there about bringing in Julio Jones, whether it's via trade, whether it's, I don't know what it would be. There's got to be some concerns about bringing Julio Jones. But going back to that on-air conversation. So Julio says he wants to play for a winner, not the Dallas Cowboys. And he says, I'm out of there, referring to Atlanta. So it certainly seemed like this comes, by the way, days after and a reporter for The Athletic said that the Falcons were wanting to trade Julio Jones. So it's not sounding like either side is really viewing this relationship as one that's going to continue going on past this offseason. But I just find the interview is so funny from a fan perspective because you can hear the female host, I believe it's Jane Taft, saying about midway through the conversation, can you remind him that we are on air? Because he said so much stuff that, and before, by the way, before Shannon Sharpe actually said, I believe, that they were on air, before he actually told them, Julio had already come out and said all this stuff that's going to be, plastered all over your TV or your computer, every major sports show, including this channel, for the next 48 hours or so. I mean, it's just, I think Julio's going to call Shannon back after the day ends and might not be too happy about this whole situation. You know, I don't think he'll be picking up the phone from Shannon Sharpe very often after this, especially if he was not aware that he was on live TV. But who knows? I mean, he could have known the whole time. He could have just made it quite clear, but I don't think we see many star players come out and state their intentions that clearly, especially through an outlet like Undisputed, just on live television like that. But I mean, we'll see. It wasn't even like an official interview. Like, Shannon Sharpe just pull out his phone, call Julio Jones, which I think is pretty cool. If you can just pull out your phone, Julio Jones is a contact you have, you can just call up. But at the same time, you have to kind of question, you know, maybe Geraint Shannon's not a journalist, but yeah, I question the efficacy of doing something like that to Julio Jones and potentially just hanging him out to dry there on live television and not tell him about it. But let's see how this all plays out. Julio Jones is going to be a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. I mean, he has already put together a resume that qualifies him for that. But we're going to see now where he goes, because you sometimes see guys change teams late in their careers and have a fantastic second effort, have a fantastic second career, essentially, with a different team. And sometimes they just switch clubs and it's never the same again. So we'll see with Julio Jones where he ends up. He wants to play for a winner. I don't think Atlanta's going to be a winner this year. And it certainly sounds like the Falcons and Julio are not interested on either side in continuing this partnership that's been going on since 2011. I just don't know what team will have the space and the assets to get Julio Jones. And granted, I don't think anyone's going to be trading a first-round pick for Julio Jones because of all the things that are previously listed, his contract, his age, the injuries. Maybe a second-rounder, maybe a combination of second and third. Maybe not even that, maybe just a third, fifth, seventh, something like that, and maybe a player as well. But we'll see, because the contract right now is the big issue, because you can't be a team like Green Bay or even think Baltimore at this point. You don't have enough space to acquire a contract like Julio Jones's. And I think that might ultimately become the limiting factor for Julio Jones and where he can go here as this story continues to unfold and we find out where the future Hall of Famer is going to play next season.